Jamie Carragher, from me to you, shut the fuck up. You know, it never really ceases to amaze me the lack of self-awareness that certain people have in this world. It never ceases to amaze me just the amount of main character syndrome certain people have. It never really ever ceases to amaze me that certain people don't realize that the world doesn't revolve around them. It never ever ceases to amaze me that certain people who don't realize that just because they don't experience something, they should not be talking about it. This is the perfect example of it. Jamie Carragher, about a few days ago, came out on Sky Sports, and he literally came out and said he didn't think that the Africa Cup of Nations was a major tournament. Says who? Like, since when did a guy like you determine what an international tournament like the Africa Cup of Nations, whether it is a major tournament or minor tournament? Basically, he said that the Africa Cup of Nations is not looked at like the Copa America is looked at. Oh, is that right? Says who? Why? Because Balon because the Balon d'Or is not the winner of the Africa Cup of Nations doesn't determine who wins the Balon d'Or. That's the reason why. That's how we determine what a major tournament is now, huh? What do you think the Africa Cup of Nations means to a guy like me? An African like me. I've been watching this tournament for almost 20 years in my life. The first tournament I ever remember watching was Egypt 2006. That tournament, watching that tournament, was one of the big reasons why I became a football fan. And every 2 years since, I've been watching this tournament. This tournament has brought memories in the minds of so many Africans. And forget about Africans. Outside Africans who watch the Africa Cup of Nations say the same thing I do. The amount of passion that we see in this tournament, the amount of memories that this tournament gives us, the amount of times we see minnows absolutely surprised have surprise packages. Guys, I'm Gambian. I am Gambian, guys. In 2021, my nation qualified for the Africa Cup of Nations for the first time. Do you know what that meant to me? We went to the Africa Cup of Nations in Cameroon in 2022, and in our first ever tournament, reached the quarterfinals. Do you know what that meant to me? Do you know what it meant to Africans to see a nation like mine do well in the tournament? Absolutely cause upsets, beating countries like Tunisia, beating countries like Guinea, playing against the host in the quarterfinals at home. These tournaments mean so much to so many people in this continent. What do you think a tournament like the Africa Cup of Nations means to players? A guy like Didier Drogba never won the Africa Cup of Nations. That man always, every single 2 years, when that tournament was performed, he was there. Until he retired from international football, he played in every single Africa Cup of Nations and he played his heart out. What do you think the Africa Cup of Nations means to a guy like Samuel Eto'o? That man was one of the best strikers in Europe. But every time the Africa Cup of Nations came around, guess what? He was there. What do you think the Africa Cup of Nations means to a guy like Salah? I mean, you're a Liverpool legend. Is that why you don't like Africa Cup of Nations? Because all of your African players always leave. What do you think that tournament means to guys like them? Why is it that those players, who, by the way, they have choices, they can choose to not go. Why is it that whenever the Africa Cup of Nations comes around, they are always quick to leave? Go quick to leave and go and play for their nations. Because it means that much. Crazy, isn't it? It's crazy how all of these incredible African players are always so quick to go and play for their African nations for a tournament that's apparently not a major tournament. It's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. But honestly, guys, at this point, are we even surprised? You see this whole thing with Jamie Carragher? We've always known about this. I think Ian Wright literally said it not too long ago. There is not a tournament that is more disrespected than the Africa Cup of Nations. It's crazy. Like the underbelly of racism that exists in the Western media never ceases to amaze me. I mean, a few years ago, we remember the Napoli president basically saying he wouldn't sign any more Africans, or he wouldn't let any of his Africans go to the Africa Cup of Nations. The lack of self-awareness. When the Euros comes around, all of these absolute pricks, the presidents, the pundits, are the same people. When it's time for their countries to be in that tournament, will sit there and talk about pride. Talk about their nations with pride. But when it's time to talk about African nations, oh no, we're a hindrance. We're a hindrance to their club football. Absolute disgrace. I'm a Barcelona fan. Samuel Eto'o, every single 2 years, he had to go. He had to leave this Barcelona squad and go to play for his nation. I never complained whenever he left because I understood what time it was. And yeah, we were going to miss him, but listen, man, it's about pride when you're playing for your nation. And that's what sometimes these people don't understand. For someone like you, Jamie Carragher, it's not a surprise to me. You didn't care about your nation. When we remember, the only thing I ever remember about Jamie Carragher for England was missing a penalty in the 2006 World Cup against Portugal. That is your highlight of your career. Let's be real. You're Liverpudlian, and most Liverpool fans, they care more about their club than they care about England. So you're probably one of those people as well. So when you look at guys like Salah and Mane leaving, you absolutely hate them. Well, if that's your problem, then guess what? Why do you keep signing African players? It's crazy, isn't it? But it's an absolute disgrace. And to a lot of people who are not African, they will never understand. And let me be clear. I feel the same way about every single international tournament, continental tournament. I believe that Asian players should be going to represent their Asian nations when it comes to the Asian Cup. I watched the recent Asian Cup. I recently watched it. It was an incredible tournament. Incredible story from Jordan. Reaching the final of the Asian Cup against Qatar, the host. These are things that people always talk about. People always like to remind us about when nations like Iceland punch above their weight in the Euros. Talking about countries like North Macedonia or Georgia. They always like to talk about those nations. The Africa Cup of Nations is going to be played this year. Guess what? We're going to be seeing countries like Comoros in the tournament. My country failed to qualify in this next tournament. I think Botswana, if I'm not mistaken, are actually in the tournament as well. My country, Gambia, going to their first Africa Cup of Nations in 2022 and reaching the quarterfinals for the first time in their history. In our debut tournament. The storytelling and stuff like that. Madagascar in 2019 reaching the quarterfinals in their debut tournament. But this has always been this tournament for us. So I say this to you, Jamie Carragher. Yeah, you can have your opinions. But brother, this idea that it's not a major tournament, why? Because the Balon d'Or it doesn't determine who wins the Balon d'Or. When was the last time an African player won the Balon d'Or, huh? We all understand for years that African players don't ever get given the Balon d'Or. Let's be real. Let us be real. When Sadio Mane Sadio Mane in 2022, people forget the guy finished third in the Ballon d'Or over Mohamed Salah. Why? Because yeah, the guy had a great season alongside Salah, but you know why he picked Salah to third place? It's because the guy won the Africa Cup of Nations in 2022. So why don't you tell me about that? And for those of you who don't think it's not the case, think about it. He scored more goals than Mane that season in 2022. But when it came to personal accolades, guess what? There was one thing that Salah didn't win that Mane won, which was the Africa Cup of Nations. That's what pipped him to finishing higher than Mohamed Salah in the Balon d'Or. So it's crazy. It's crazy, isn't it? So apparently this tournament, which apparently doesn't determine anything in the Ballon d'Or, I've just shown you a moment where the Ballon d'Or has actually been determined, basically who finishes where. So now we know it does. How about the year that Mahrez in Algeria won the Africa Cup of Nations in 2019? Mahrez finished top 10 in the Ballon d'Or because he won the Africa Cup of Nations and he was one of the best players in that tournament. Top 10. So this idea that the Africa Cup of Nations doesn't determine anything in the Ballon d'Or is lies. At the end of the day, Messi doesn't have to win the Copa America to win the Ballon d'Or. This guy won 5 Ballon d'Ors before he won his first international trophy. So this idea that people like Carragher have, that the Ballon d'Or, the winning the Copa America determines who wins the Ballon d'Or, is BS. Because Messi was winning Ballon d'Ors before he won Copa America. To me, all of these international tournaments, all of these intercontinental tournaments, I look at them the same way. People think, I'm telling you now, guys, the way I look at the AFCON is the way I look at the Euros. The same way I look at the Asian Cup. The same way I look at the CONCACAF Cup and the Copa America. I don't sit around saying, yo, I'm looking forward to the Copa America more than I'm looking forward to the AFCON, ever. I never look at the Euros and say, yo, I'm looking forward to the Euros than more than I'm looking forward to the Africa Cup of Nations. Absolutely not. And let me be clear. What I'm saying to you now, this is the same thing that Asians will say to you about the Asian Cup. That CONCACAF people, I'm American. I'm American as well. I watch the CONCACAF every single time the Gold Cup comes around. Yeah, it's not a significant tournament, but it's a tournament in this side of the continent. And I like watching it because we do have a lot of beautiful stories sometimes. We see when Canada in this tournament. When we see Jamaica, how they do in this tournament. Panama, Honduras. Heck, when we see teams like even like Antigua and Bermuda and or Trinidad and Tobago. Some of these nations, Haiti, when some of these nations come around in this tournament and actually play well, people don't see these stories. But this is the thing, like I said, it doesn't surprise me. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Western media. The Western media think that the world revolves around them. That just because they love and admire the tournaments that are in their side of the world, nothing else in the world matters. Nothing else in the world matters. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. And listen, I'm not one of these people. I'm not sitting here calling you a racist because I don't think you're a racist. I just think you're an absolute fucking idiot who has no self-awareness, zero self-awareness to realize that you, as a European white man, have no right to be looking down at a tournament like the AFCON when you don't have any affiliation to that tournament. Just because you don't watch it doesn't mean there are not people over there who don't watch it. Okay? So keep your opinions, your selfish opinions, to yourself. At the end of the day, I will not sit here and speak about the Asian Cup because I don't watch it all the time. But I know that that tournament means a lot to people. And I consider that a major tournament. Just like I consider the Euros a major tournament. Just like I consider the Copa America a major tournament. Just like I consider the Gold Cup a major tournament. Because these tournaments are continental tournaments. And they mean so much to these continents. So that's all I have to say, ladies and gentlemen. Big up to every single one of you guys watching. Tell me what you guys think of what Jamie Carragher said. Tell me what you guys think of what I said. If you guys agree with what I said, do you guys disagree? Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and peace, you guys. Take care.